I have decided to launch a short series of videos showing you how to use beading chain. This is beading chain. It's a very small closed link chain. However, because it is very small and closed, you can't just slide a jump ring on here and put your clasping on. You have to have a method to end this chain. So in this video, I'm going to show you a couple of methods and do a couple simple projects so that you can see how to use your chain and how to end it. This chain is known by several different names. I got mine from Shirley at Budget Bead Box. She calls it Koreana chain. However, Shirley does not ship internationally, so I save this next portion for those who are not in the States and want to do these projects. This chain is not uncommon. It's easily found. It's just called beading chain at most sites. Sometimes you'll find it snake chain, cordana chain, Koreana chain, Boston link. There's several different names, but if you put in beading chain, you will usually find this. You want to stay within a 0.6, 0.7 millimeter range. You could even probably go to 0.5 millimeter. That depends on the endings that you're going to use, and we will discuss that further as I start doing the projects. Shirley sells hers in 2-yard packages. They are very reasonably priced, and that means that you can get several yards and make several different projects with it. And a lot of other sites, it's sold by the foot, and it's not quite as reasonable. But still, it's not terribly expensive, so you can get yourself some of the chain. It comes in several different colors. You can get it in gold, you can get it in rose gold, you can get it in platinum. This is the platinum color here. Now, to end this chain, you're going to need a method or two to end it. My favorite method to end the chain are these little crimp tubes that have a loop at the end. These are my favorite, and I found these at jewelrysupply.com. This is the item number here. They come in a package of 10 each, and I just bought a whole bunch of packages and put them in here because I really like this particular crimp tube. Shirley has some on her site that are comparable, but this is my favorite, so I'm showing you what I use. Most of the time, this is what I will use, but I'll show you a couple other methods too. Now, when you're going to do this, it has a 1 millimeter hole, so you're going to center your chain right in the middle of the hole, and you're going to crimp it onto the chain. So what I like to do is I like to place it in my crimping plier in the second divot closest to the handle. So there's 2 divots on your crimping plier. This one here has kind of a crinkly look and then a half moon shape. That is the one closest to the handle, and that is the first one you're going to use. So I like to place my crimp tube into the crimping pliers. And I put it on the flat side. See, this side is kind of curved and this side is flat. Put it on the flat side so that I can see that it's flushed or even maybe slightly recessed when you place it in the crimping tool. Then you are assured that you're not going to crush the top of the crimp tube where the loop is. You want to crimp the end more than you do the top. Then you're going to place your beading chain into this crimp tube and make sure you can feel it hit the top of the crimp tube where the loop is, so that you know it's all the way in, and then you're just going to squeeze. As you can see, this now is folded over the little crinkly side of the divot in the crimping tool. Let me show you what it looks like. It has a slight fold in the center, and you can see that quite clearly. Then we're going to place it sideways into the first divot, which looks like a full circle here, closest to the tip of the crimping tool. We're going to place that in there, and we're going to center the fold that we created right in the middle and have the 2 tubes that form on either side touching the crimping tool. You can see how I have this placed, and I'm making sure that it's flush again or even a little recessed inside my crimping tool so that I am crimping the end of the crimp tube, and I'm going to squeeze. Now I have a really nice ending for my crimp chain, or for my beading chain, and I can now slide a jump ring on here and put my clasping on. So we're going to make a quick little project so I can show you also what you can do to make just a real simple little necklace with this chain. So what I have is a couple of jump rings. I have a 10mm size and I have a 3mm size, and I am going to use a drop crystal. This is a Swarovski and it's about 13mm long, 6mm wide. You can use any size, doesn't matter, as long as it's top drilled. That means it's horizontally drilled in the top and not vertically drilled through the length of the bead. The first thing we're going to do is we're just going to open the bigger jump ring. And this is a fairly decent gauge jump ring. It's probably about a 18 gauge, and I'm just going to open it. It's a nice firm jump ring so that my pendant will have a really nice strong foundation to hang on. Then I'm just going to take this crystal and I'm going to slide it on the jump ring right through the hole here, and sometimes you have to position it just right. There we go. And it'll slide on there nicely. You may want to check if you've got really heavy jump rings, it might not slide on, but most of them I've found work just fine. And then I'm going to close the jump ring by twisting it back. I twisted it open, now I twist it back, and I'm going to shake it a little, make sure that it's completely closed, like this. And then I'm going to open my smaller jump ring. Side to side, twist it open, and then put it on to the bigger jump ring and twist it closed, making sure that it's closed tightly. Now I have a pendant that I can put on my chain. But the first thing I'm going to do is I want to stabilize my pendant that I'm putting on here. I want it to be centered and I want it to have a stop on either side so it doesn't slide off the chain, because of course this would slide right off. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to use some size 1 Beadalon round crimp tubes. You want to have a round if you're going to use this method, and you want it to be small. So Beadalon works the best because they're pretty uniform in size and they always crimp well. So I recommend that you have some size 1 round Beadalons for this. If you use a tube shape, for this particular method, it's going to be sharp and they don't crimp well and they just don't look as pretty. So a size 1. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick up one of these size 1 crimp tubes or crimp beads, since they're round, and I'm just going to slide one of them on my chain. I'm going to use some 5mm bicone crystals. You can use anything you want, any beads you would like, or you can just slide this on if you'd like and call it good. And I'm going to put 3 bicone crystals on. First, I think I'm going to use a little spacer bead. So I've got these 3mm round spacer beads. Shirley also has these on her website, so you can get them if you would like. And I'm just going to slide one on. Then, perhaps, and then I'm going to slide on my crystals. And then I'm going to slide on another of my spacer beads. And the chain is kind of floppy, so it takes a minute to slide your beads on. And then I'm going to go ahead and put my small jump ring on the chain here. Then I'm going to repeat the process on this side. Okay, so as you can see, I went ahead and put my spacer bead, my 3 crystals, my spacer bead, and then my size 1 crimp bead on. And now, before I stabilize this, by crimping these beads, I am going to make sure that the end of my chain is together so that I can center this well. So since I already have a crimp tube on the end, I'm just going to line up this chain right to the end of that crimp tube. So let me show you. I'm just going to hold it just like this, so they're about the same length. And then I'm just going to stretch out my chain. And I know I'm out of camera. Hang on a second. And I'm just going to lay this down, making sure that my chains are nice and even so that I can find the center of my chain. Just like this. And then we are going to crimp these little tubes. So we don't want this to be really tight and stiff, so we're just going to leave it laying like this. Pick up your chain nose pliers, grab a hold of that little crimp tube, and my pliers are a little magnetized, and I am going to just make sure that everything is about where I want it, and then I'm going to squeeze that crimp tube. Just like that. I'll get closer so that you can see on this one. I have to keep my chains even and keep in camera here, so let me move everything. Now I'm going to just go ahead and make sure that everything is, you don't want it tight, you just want it laying nice and neat so that you still have fluid movement in it. If you push real tight on this, you're going to get a really stiff focal, and it's not going to be very pretty or move very well on your chain. Now I've got it here, and I'm just going to squeeze this one really tight. And now I have stabilized the focal on my necklace. Let me show you what it looks like. I have a little bit of movement. You see, the chain will move a little bit in there, and that's okay. It doesn't matter. All this is going to do is stabilize it. It's not going to hold it tight in place. It just makes sure that your beads aren't going to slide around, and it's going to stay somewhat centered for you. When you put on your necklace, it'll wear nicely. And then, excuse me, we're going to go ahead and finish the other end of the chain. So it's exactly the same process. I will just pick up my crimping tool and put my crimping tube in it in the second divot. Just like I did before. Just like this. And then, of course, I will put my chain in there and squeeze. And then you can see my fold. And then I'm going to center that fold in the first divot, just like I showed you earlier. Let's get this in here a little better. And make sure I'm to the end of the crimp tube and squeeze. And that side is now ended. So all I have to do now is get a couple of jump rings, and I can use a lobster claw clasp or any type of clasp that I would like, and end this. So let me grab some clasps and we'll end this, and then we'll move on to another simple little pendant project. Okay, so I have chosen a 3mm and a 6mm jump ring and a lobster claw clasp, and I am just going to open this 3mm jump ring first, and I'm going to slide it on the lobster claw. So I will just open it from side to side, slide it on my clasp, slide my clasp on my loop on my crimp tube, and close it. And then I will just open this jump ring, and I will twist it open, put it on this loop, and close it. Whoops. Making sure it's closed well. And then I have a really cute necklace. Back up so you can see it. And these, I made several of these for Christmas time, and I took them to work, and these sold like crazy. The doctor I work for always buys some jewelry from me for all the staff members over Christmas time. And I made a bunch of these, a bunch of different types, and I'm going to show you a couple others. And these sold really well. These were the ones that everyone went for. They just appeal to everybody. So this is a really nice little method that you can use to make a pretty simple necklace and get it done fairly quickly. So now we're going to do another. So we're going to cut about 18 inches. This one I cut just a little under 18 inches so that by the time I finished it, it was right around 18 inches so that this will fit really nicely at the base of the throat. If you have a very small person, you can cut it 16 inches so that it fits right at the base of the throat. Or you can cut them all 16 inches, and then you can put an extender chain on the end too, if you would like. I'm going to cut another piece about 18 inches long, and I'm going to show you another method. So I have cut myself about 17.5 inches of chain because I want this to be right around 18 inches. And I'm going to show you how to use a pinch bail to make a nice simple pendant. Now you can use any type of drop crystal. These are big drop crystals. This one's a Swarovski, this one's a Chinese crystal, this one is another Chinese crystal, and they're just nice big crystals. Or Shirley has at Budget Bead Box these nice glass drop beads. And she has them, she gave me a package, she has them in all different colors. So you can get these very reasonable at Budget Bead Box, and you can also use whatever you have on hand. If you really just want to showcase a really pretty top drilled anything, you can use it. This is a pinch bail. This pinch bail I got from Shirley also at Budget Bead Box. So she has these. It has a nice little rhinestone on the top. And what you do with these is, the way I like to use them is I grab my chain nose pliers, or you can use your round nose pliers, and I put them inside the pinch bail just like this, so that the two spikes that are sticking out are inside the pliers, and then I just open my pliers a little, and as I open my pliers I open the pinch bail like this. And then you have to judge how wide you have to open it. I'm going to use this little glass pendant that Shirley sent, and I'm going to slide it into the hole of this bead just like this, and then I'm going to try to center it and squeeze it into that hole. So all you have to do is squeeze them shut, get them centered on the hole of the bead, and then you have movement, and you have a pretty, very simple, very nice focal pendant for your chain. So I'm going to do the same thing with this. I just wanted to show you that it was another method. Instead of putting the jump ring on the crystal like this, you can use a pinch bail like this and make it just as pretty. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on my chain, and I think I'll put something on either side of it and crimp it off with my little size 1 crimp bead so that I stabilize my focal, which you don't have to do. You can just have it on the chain like this and then end your chain. I'm going to show you another method to end the chain, and I'm going to use these little clamshells and show you how to end the chain with this. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and decorate the center, come back and show you that, and then we will end the chain. So I wanted to show you really quick what I've decided to do here. I've got these little cuboid metal beads. Shirley also has them on Budget Bead Box. And she sends me all these cute things, so I use them. And I hope that you all like them too and would like to use them too. So I always tell you where I got it. And these are like little metal cuboid beads that she has on her website. And what I've done is I've just slid 2 right under that bail, and then I put on a size 1 crimp tube on either side. Centered it on my chain by putting the clasping ends of the chain together, and then just kind of slid it all together really tightly here. And then I'm going to try, I haven't done this, I'm going to try to stabilize this like this with my crimp bead. So I'm just going to hold this and crimp it. And this one I do want a little tight so that it holds everything together for me. And here, because I think this makes a really pretty base for the focal to lay on. Let's see how I did. Yeah, and that worked okay. So now I can put a couple more crystals on it, or I can just leave it like this, and that can be my focal, just like that. So I have some pink crystals I thought I might slide on here now that I have that stabilized. And I can just slide them on, maybe. And I'll put a couple on either side. And then I can put another cuboid bead and some crimp beads, and I'll come back and show you exactly how the focal on this one looks. And there it is. I think it's really pretty. I just went ahead and put my crystals on, my cuboids, metal beads, and my size 1 crimps, and crimped it down securely, and that is my focal right there. Really pretty. So now the ends of this, I'm going to end a little bit differently. I'm going to show you how to use a clamshell, and I'm going to show you how to do it with a size 1 crimp tube and also with a size 2. So this is a Beadalon tube instead of a round. This is a size 1 round. We also should, with this method, use some glue. So I'm just going to get some E6000. I'll probably get glue all over my fingers and it'd be disgusting, but you know, that's the way it works. So I've got this tube of E6000. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this clamshell. And this is the type that opens towards the top. There are also those that open to the side. And I will have to find one of those. I thought I had some available. But I'll find one and show you how to use those too. But right now, we're going to use the type that opens to the top. And it has a little loop right here and a little hole in the bottom. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to just slide this hole into your chain with the clamshell up towards the end of the chain. So just like this, slide it on. And then if you're going to use a size 1 round, you're just going to grab a hold of that size 1 round, just put it on your chain, and then take your chain nose pliers, move it towards the end of the chain, leaving a little bit of it sticking out, and just crimp it tight. Make sure you get it very tight. And then you can cut this chain down. Leave a little tiny bit of it sticking out just for security reasons. I'll get you closer so you can see what I'm doing. And so basically all I've done is crimp a little size 1 onto this chain. And then I'm going to get my E6000, back off again, and I'm just going to let it kind of puddle at the end of the tube here and dip this in here. And then I'm going to grab my clamshell and pull it up, letting that crimp bead rest right in the belly of the clamshell. And then I'm just going to close the clamshell. And there you have a nice little ending. You can put your jump ring on here and put your clasping on the jump ring. For the other side of my chain, I've gone ahead and slid my clamshell on, This time I am going to use a size 2 crimp tube shape, and it's a bead-along. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to slide this onto my chain. I'm going to take my crimping tool this time, and in the second divot I'm going to grab a hold of this crimp tube. Center it in the crimping tool, nice. Bring it to the end of the chain, and I'm just going to crimp it down. And because this is so much more secure, I've left less hanging out. And then I'm just going to reposition, so you can see my fold right there. Now I'm going to reposition this into the first divot on my crimping tool, making sure that the fold is centered and the two tube areas that formed after I used this divot are touching the tool, and then I'm going to squeeze. And now I have a nice tight crimp around here. Now if you want to use this method to stabilize your focal area, then you'll just put it back in the tube and you just start to reduce and shape this crimp tube against the chain so that it's nice and pretty, and it turns out really pretty. And you can use this method to stabilize your focal instead of just squeezing a size 1 on here. This is actually prettier, I think, and it's more stable. It works much better than just squeezing a crimp tube that can eventually release on there. But it's a little bit more work. So either way, if this is all you have, then use that method to stabilize your focals also. Then I will just dip this in my glue, slide my clamshell over, and then close it. And now I have ended both sides. I hope I was in camera for that. I did it exactly the same way that I did this one. Just slide it over, dip it in the glue, and close it. Just like that. And now I can put my jump rings and my clasping on this one. And this is what it looks like after you put your clasps on with this type of ending. I prefer this ending. I think it's just prettier, slimmer, not quite as bulky. However, this way does work too, and these are pretty easily found. So let's do one more necklace using a sideways opening clamshell. So let me show you what these look like, and I'll put one more little design together and show you how to use these. Same basic concept, except for the fact that they open to the side instead of the top, just like that. So I'm going to go ahead and get a few things together and make a little project for that. I'm going to show you how to put 2 chains together this time and use the sideways opening clamshell. Now this clamshell opens like a book instead of over the top like the other one. Let me show you. This is what this looks like. Now they also are a little smaller. This one's kind of big. This one's a little bit smaller, you can see. So with this one, because it's got a pretty big belly, I'm going to show you how to put 2 chains together. You could probably do it in a smaller one like this too, but I know that it works really well with the bigger one like this. So what I'm going to do, there's all different shapes and sizes and weird things with the clamshells too, but with this one it works really well. I've cut 2 pieces of chain. I cut one 1 inch shorter than the other. I'm going to put them together and figure out which one is the longer one. And this is my longer one. And this is my shorter one. And I'm just going to keep the longer one to the outside here. Bring the 2 ends together. This time I'm going to use a size 3 crimp bead because the two chains fit together really well in a size 3. You can get packages of bead along crimp tubes that have sizes 1, 2, 3, and 4 in them. It's really nice to have a package of that, to have all the different sizes so that you can use them for different projects. So this is a size 3 and it is the regular tube shape, and I am going to pick it up in my crimping pliers here in the second divot. And this always takes me a second, so hang in there. Getting them lined up right takes a second. Alright, get in there, guy. If you can pick it up with the front first and then move it to the back, it works a little easier. But they want to twist and turn and be stupid. There. Okay, so now I've got it in my crimping pliers and in the second divot, and I'm going to grab my two chains, making sure that I keep my longer chain to the outside here. I'm going to do it on this side because my right hand is holding the crimping tool. So I've got my two ends together like this. And at this point, it doesn't really matter which chain is in front of the other, but it will matter when you put it in your crimp tube. Lay them side by side, or when you put it in your lobster. And then I'm just going to squeeze it on the two chains here. Get you close so you can see. And now I have two chains encased inside this crimp tube. And then I'm just going to go into the first divot, put it sideways, center the fold, just like I've been doing, and squeeze it together. Now I have two chains together in this little crimp tube right here. And then all I have to do is dip that into my glue. So first I'm just going to cut these ends off. And I'm going to dip this into my glue. Try not to make a huge mess, which I always do. And then I can just pick up my clamshell, or actually I like to just kind of pick it up with the glue like this. Center it on that crimp tube. Make sure that my longer chain is to the outside. So this will be my outside one now. Just like this. So when I put it in on the other side, I will make sure that the long chain is to the outside of my piece. And now I have two chains in here, just like this. If I can get it in camera. Sorry about that. And that's how you use the sideways one. Just crimp it first and then close it around it. Okay, real easy. For the other side, I've untwisted everything and made sure that this is the longer chain. Made sure it's towards me, to the outside. Making sure that the other side is also in alignment. And then I'm going to put these two ends together and do the exact same thing. So I'll just put a size 3 crimp bead on there. And I'll crimp it and put the clamshell on it, and we'll come back and see what it looks like. And this is what it looks like, and you can just go ahead and slide some clasping on. If you wanted to, you could put a jump ring on a crystal like this and hang it from the bottom chain, put a little charm on there. It doesn't matter. Just open a jump ring and slide it on there, and there you have it. You have a double chain necklace, and this is how you use the sideways opening clamshell beads. And of course, you don't have to do it with two chains. You can do it with just one, same method. Just use your size 1 or your size 2 crimp bead the way that I showed you, and you can use the sideways clamshells. Okay, so now I'm going to show you another way to end your chain and another way to stabilize your beads on your chain with size 2 crimp tubes. Now, this is a magnetic column clasp, and we're going to use it to clasp our ends of our chain and end it. So all we'll need is the clasp, some size 2 crimp beads, and then I'm just going to use these top drilled round beads here, and I'm going to use a spacer bead alongside them because these holes in these beads are pretty big and I don't want them to slide over my crimp beads once I put them on, otherwise there would be no point to stabilize them. So I'm going to use some little 3mm spacer beads here. The first thing I'm going to do is I am going to put my two ends together here. I've cut 17 inches because 18 is a little long and 16 is a little short for me, so I'm customizing it for me. You can also just make it 16 inches, put an extender on it, or you can make it 18 inches, 20 inches, however big you would like yours to be. I want mine to be between 16 and 18, so I've cut 17 inches and I'm just putting it together like this, and then I'm going to pick up a bead and I'm going to put it on my chain, bring it to the center here, and then I'm going to pick up some spacer beads on either side, bring it down, and another spacer bead, and then I'm going to pick up a size 2 crimp tube shape, and I'm going to drop it down to my necklace to the center here, and then the same thing on the other side, and then we will center this by putting the two chain ends together and pulling the center down like this, and then I'm just going to separate them some so I can get my crimp tool in there. Now I have to rearrange this somewhat because I don't want to have to touch it again. Now I'm going to pick up my crimp tool, and the second divot here I'm going to slide the crimp tool under until I reach the second divot with the crimp tube, and I'm just going to squeeze and secure that crimp tube and then let go. And then I'm going to go to this side, and now I have a guide, so it's okay if things kind of move around a little. I can slide my crimp tool under there, tighten things up against the crimp tube, and squeeze in the second divot. Now I have these secure, and I can do my second step to secure them further and shape them nicely. So now I have my first fold in there. I'm just going to go into the first divot, put that in sideways just like I've been showing you all along, and then now you can see it's in there sideways. I'm going to squeeze, and then I'm going to keep my tool in the first divot here and just rotate and squeeze to make this a really pretty round tube that holds everything in place. And then I'll do the same on this side. Just doctor it up, make it look pretty in that first divot. And now I have a bead that is centered on my chain. And it may not be absolutely perfect. Let's see, let's put them together. And they're pretty close. And I can always trim my chain just a tiny bit on the end here. Let me back up. Or, yeah, back up, Gina. I can always cut this little bit off and have my chains exactly the same on either side. So it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. You just want to get it as close as you can. Now, if you want to put another bead on here, Let's say you have decided that you want maybe 4 or 5 beads on this. Then you're going to, since this is centered, I'd probably do 5 beads. So what I would do, or 3, either way, is figure out where I want my next bead to be. Now that this is centered, I have a mark that I can use to help me guide where I want to put my next beads. So let's say I want it about there. So I'm going to put it there. I'm going to measure that. Well, I'll measure it after I secure it. I'll go ahead and pop one on this side too. So I've got my crimp beads on either side, and they're ready. And then I can figure out where I want this one. Right there. And then I'll just slide my crimp tool underneath it. You can pick it up if you want. It doesn't truly matter. And get my crimp bead in there nice. And then just look at it again, see where I want it, about there. Squeeze and secure it, just like that. And then I can close it the rest of the way and shape it and reduce it and make it nice and tight against the chain. And these crimp beads aren't going to move and fall off. They're going to stay where you put them. Now, I can measure this one. I'm going to measure from this end of this crimp bead to this end of this crimp bead. And it's just under an inch. You can mark your ruler if you'd like, so that you can get each one of them the same. So I just have a red Sharpie here, and I'm just going to mark right here. And I just have to remember that I'm putting it towards the end of the crimp tube and the beginning of the ruler to the end of this crimp tube. So it probably is an inch, since I'm using the mark over here that isn't actually within the inch marker. Now I'm going to place this one at the end of that crimp tube and at the end of my ruler right there. And it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, but you want it to get it as close as you can. And then if it moves, you'll have to measure it again. I'm going to slide underneath it. Actually, let's mark the chain. Be a little easier because it is going to move. So I'm going to put this here at the end of that chain, and right here I can mark my chain. There, I know that's where my crimp tube needs to be, the end of it. So I'm going to slide it to where the end of it's right on that. And then I can pick it up in my tool like this. I can center it and get it all ready. And it's much easier for me to handle. I can place it right at that red dot and squeeze. And then I can crimp it down. And now I have markers for my next 2 beads. Let me shape this one a little bit better. Reduce it and shape it and make it look pretty. And then I can put on my spacer bead and my next top drill bead and my next spacer bead, and then my crimp tube, oh come here crimp tube, I hate when they fuss with me. Just do what I say. Just do it. There we go. Now I can bring this down and I can just pick this up. Everything's secure, so now I can just put it on my crimp tube Let me get you closer. I'm being kind of far away for you to see what I'm doing. So I can put it on my crimp tube, squeeze, release. I've got my fold. I place this one sideways so the fold is in the center and the tubes are on either side of the crimping tool, and squeeze. And then I can just doctor it up, squeeze it, reduce it, make it pretty. And that one is secure now. And then I can go over and do this side. And if I want to do more, I can measure out because I've got my marks on my ruler, and I can just put a dot on my chain and just continue and just working from the center out. And so now I'll do this side, and then I'll probably put 2 more beads on here. Okay, so I finished putting on the beads the way I want them to be. And I just continued measuring out from each one, making sure that I had them spread nice and evenly across the front of my necklace. And this is just going to be very short, lay right at the collarbone type of necklace. And now I want to put on my clasping. So I have this magnetic clasp, and I need to show you that on this magnetic clasp, one end has a big hole. It looks kind of dark there. And then the other side has a littler hole. When you use your magnetic clasp, you're going to slide the side with the smaller hole onto your chain so that the bigger hole is out towards the end of the chain, like this. And then you can just drop it down and pick up a crimp tube and put it on the end of your chain. Grab your crimping tool, grab a hold of the crimp tube, and let me get you closer here. Maybe even a little bit closer. Go to the end of your chain, just leaving a little hanging out so that you can make sure it's secure, and squeeze. So just like we've been doing, squeeze first in the first divot towards the handle, turn it sideways, put it in the first divot, and squeeze again. And now we really need to go around it and reduce the size of this so that it'll fit in our magnetic clasp. So squeeze, turn, and make this crimp tube small, just like that, and then cut the chain off. Now you can dip it in a little bit of glue just to keep it from sliding out of your magnetic clasp. It stays in there pretty good, but sometimes it slides out. So I just put a little tiny bit of glue on my crimp bead. Then I just take my magnetic clasp and pull it up over that crimp tube, just like that. And now you have a very nice ending to your necklace. And you just do the exact same thing on the other side. Slide it on, small hole side first, onto the chain, and then crimp down your crimp tube, put a little glue on it, and pull the magnetic clasp over your crimp tube. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll be back to show you the finished product. And here's my cute little necklace. And if you want some of these top drilled crystals, these round ones, they lay really cute on the neck. I think Shirley has some of those too, to tell you the truth. So anyway, that is how you use this type of magnetic clasping to end your chain. And here are all the necklaces I've made recently with all the styles that I showed you, all the methods I showed you today. Here's the one I just finished, and I put this on and it hangs right at the base of the throat, and it's really pretty. This with the top drilled beads hang just perfect. Really pretty little splash of sparkle. This one is the first one I made, of course, on the video here. And I made several of these for Christmas time, and they all sold. And then here's one with the pinch bail that we made on the camera today with the little cuboid beads. This one is really pretty. It hangs really nice also on the throat. And then here's another one I did with the same basic method that I used for this one. And I just put a bail in the middle here with a little quartz crystal. And this one is really pretty on the throat too. I wore this one to work and got lots of compliments. This is another with the pinch bail, with the rose gold tone, and with the glass drop beads that Shirley has on her side. And then here is another with a pinch bail, and it's a disc crystal. This is one of my favorites. This is really pretty. It's a disc crystal with a hole in the top. I put the pinch bail on it. Then I put 2 crimp beads on either side of the bail, put some bicone crystals, 4mm, and then another crimp on the end there. And this is a really pretty one too. Looks great on the neck. This one I made just very simple. I have a tutorial on my Gina's Gem Creations channel on how to wrap a crystal like this. I took one of those crystals that I made when I was making that tutorial, and I just put a jump ring on it and slid it on the chain, and just ended the chain like I've shown you with the little crimp tube loops. And this one's really pretty to wear too. I like this one. It's just really simple, nice splash of sparkle. And here is the double chain one we made. Now with this double chain one, you could do the same method on both chains like we did with this one and this one too, or this one, to dress it up. But I just made it to show you how to use the side closing clamshells. And this one is really pretty just by itself, just 2 double chains also. So that is what you can do, just one of the examples of, or several examples actually, of what you can do with the beading chain and make just a million different types of necklaces. And I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and there are several more to come, or probably 2 more to come, maybe even only 1 more. But I'm going to show you how to make some earrings with the beading chain, and bracelets, and another style of necklace.